here?
This is a problem that's been with our nation for certain as long as I can remember, and as long as many of you can remember. We haven't managed to come up with a solution. And I guess the question that comes to my mind is there a solution? Or, as some white separatists that I talked to, interviewed for another program, suggested, should we just give up on this American experiment and go our separate ways? Anyone?
We have to redefine how we define what is American culture. In the past, and probably up to now, a lot of us have been defined based on maybe what the European, or what has evolved from the European standard of various, cultural acceptable things, etc. But we have to look at multiple people, whether or not they're African American, Indian, Latino, or whatnot. So we have to redefine what the actual cultural, what's acceptable.
The whole point is that particularly the majority in this country, as they call themselves, that the European Americans have to really think about not only what was done in the past, but what they're still doing today. Number one. Number two, we have to stop thinking of this as a black-white issue. There's Native Americans in this country, there's Asian Americans, there's all kinds of ethnicities. And the whole point of this country is that it is a multi-ethnic society.
Okay.
That's what we have to offer the world.
Let me bring up another point then. That's a great point. Here are two, wait. There are two things. One, I heard on NPR something I thought was very interesting. A Hispanic woman saying, whenever we talk about race in America, we don't talk about Hispanics, we don't talk about Asians, and most importantly, we don't talk about Native Americans who were here before anyone. How does anyone, and she accused the Black civil rights movement of purposely leaving those other groups out. Okay, I would like to know first from someone Native American how you feel when you hear black people and white people especially arguing about their piece of the pie in America, and no one bothers to ask Native Americans about that.
Well, I think we've come to get used to it over the years in our dealings with the white government and the white power structure. I would like to further respond by talking about this racism issue you brought up. I don't think it's worse. I don't think it's any better. I think it's just continuing. It's more communication now. We can see Rodney King being beaten in LA almost in real time. We can see the people getting beat in the streets of Los Angeles as it happens. So in the olden days, you didn't get that. You got a month-old newspaper or something. But now we can see it all happening through this medium we're using now. And so I know I face it every day. Sometimes it gets worse, sometimes it gets better. It's like a pendulum. It swings and it swings. And it's just something we're going to have to deal with if we're going to survive, if we don't poison ourselves before then.
What we have sometimes is too much fighting among ourselves. When I say that, I'm talking about all of us. And I have witnessed over the years some things that have saddened my heart more so than the Watts riot. I have seen cases where minorities have fought each other physically, and that angers me. I don't understand how we can do that. And I have seen people criticize each other because one party didn't agree with the other party. I have a feeling about this, and my feeling is that there isn't one particular solution to this problem. Everybody in this world, I believe, is working toward a better life for themselves. And if they happen to take another direction other than what some other person is doing, I don't feel that person has a right to criticize that person, but that person should live the life that he or she chooses for themselves. Now, if you get some people with you, great. If you have to do it alone, do it alone. I point to you one personality in history who did it alone, and he went down with it, and I think all of you will recognize it, but Paul Robeson did it alone. And it's just a matter of whether or not we believe in ourselves and what we're doing. If you believe in yourselves, that's the first big step. If you don't believe in yourselves, don't go out blaming other people for your problem. And I don't know whether you hear what I'm saying here or not, but what I'm saying is that we need to take a hard look at ourselves and what we should be doing in light of the things that have been happening to us and that are not happening to us. Racism is deeper today, or is as deep today as it was 100 years ago.
My feelings and thoughts is, unless there's a spiritual revival in this country is going to you-know-where in a handbasket. Racism is alive and well on the planet Earth and will continue to be so. There will always be the haves and the have-nots. And so we can suffer under the delusion of grandeur that somebody else is going to make it better. I have sat with a group of women of color, and I began to realize that we have so much more in common than we have that's different. And I'm saying it's a personal choice that I'm going to do something about my own situation. It's like taking back your own family, taking back your community, taking back what is yours. Because I'm not looking anymore for the powers that be to do anything but what they're doing already. They've raped us, they've robbed us, they've destroyed us, all those kind of things. That's why I'm kind of sitting back, because I want to hear from the young people here, because I'm a senior in the community. I'm saying until we take back what is rightfully ours, nothing's ever going to happen. So we can sit here and we can talk about that pie in the sky in terms of the government. When you can talk about this government, this city of Minneapolis can talk about $600 million or $60 million to expand 35W, and you got people sleeping on the bridge in the wintertime, something's wrong.
Thank you.
When you talk about people coming into your community, taking over your community, something's wrong. When you can put a garbage burner down in the middle of downtown, something's wrong. And it's blowing, and I hope it blows downtown and kill all of them down there. When you can put more, but when you can put more a priority on brick and mortar than you can on humanity. And I have to agree with somebody that said that, until I began to look at my Indian brother and my Asian brother and my Hmong brother as my sister and my brother, and we move on. So you don't ever refer to me as a minority. I am not a minority into the earth. I am a majority. And if people of color ever come together, we draw all these white people out of this country. That's my own feeling. And let me just talk. Let me just speak. Two, the thing, is it getting any better? The only reason that it's getting better because they're scared to death. It's like what is the preamble? Mr. Zulu's historian of the Constitution said this government is for the people, by the people. And that don't happen. Tear the sucker down and build it all over again. So when we start burning across this country again, then they'll hear you, because they don't understand anything but violence. You brother, you talking about sitting down to a table, reason with an animal? You can't reason with an animal as far as I'm concerned. I have 4 grandsons. I'm raising an army. And they're going to know who they are, and what they're all about if God gives me strength. Until can come from here, then I say I'm not dependent on anybody to determine who and what I am. And so until we began to address those kind of issues, figure out that other stuff. Like Mr. Zulu said, it's been forever and ever and ever and ever and will be forever and ever and ever. Racism is alive, cross-burning, all that crap is going to be. So what are you going to do? You got to do something in spite of that. That's where I'm at. And I get very angry because I look at our young people, particularly young brothers, and you look at it that when you talk about, they can't even go to school and be educated. How, can you become a part of anything when you've been ostracized from the time they were little babies? It's like right now, you talk about, it's like I see little 9-year-olds that got that look already. Like, I'll take your life, ain't no big thing. When a brother come up to me and say, hey, look, living ain't about anything, dying is all right. Hey, I'm out of my misery. It says something about this country that we're living in, and we better do something about it.
When you just referred to your brothers and sisters, Asians, Hispanics, etc., I feel left out.
But I relate more to my sisters and brothers of color. I know. So I have to be honest with you. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, and I'm just saying that I felt left out because I have a sisterhood in friends that are Asian, Hispanic, Black, etc., in my own personal little world. And, that's a small microcosm of what we're talking about. But I guess what I'm thinking is, I'm hearing what everyone is saying here, especially, the Black people. And, I feel frustrated because, like Jan was saying, I understand it through my eyes, which is very limited. And that is as far as it goes for me. But I would like you or any of you personally to tell me what you want me to do. Because, you know, every day I interact with black people, for example, and other people of other races. And in my own way, I feel that I do my part to an extent. But also beyond that, I know that I'm not extremely an activist, which I could be, in trying to be sensitive, okay? In trying to accept what I don't understand. Because in some ways I have, because I've had a lot of multicultural friends. And I've learned a lot. And I've seen things I didn't like initially, and then I really came to like, and I came to think was very funny and very enjoyable.
I feel that you should feel left out. Because for instance, for one, a concentration camp has never been made for your people. But see, I go over north right now, and I see a concentration camp made for Asian people, made for brothers. The projects.
That's not entirely true. There's many women that were burned at the stake and throughout history, and women have that same sort of history of being exploited, of being raped, of being pillaged, of being not included in the power structure. We experience the glass ceiling. And I think what happens is that people that are genuine humanitarians, that are conscientious and want to improve race relations and want to improve this world, become, like it's been said, pitted against each other. I mean, the latest thing that I've heard with employment is that now black men and white women are going to be competing with each other. It's like, who puts that stuff in our heads? It's like all the people that's in power, and who is that?
I have a response for you, ma'am, and the second one from the end on the front row. Just getting to it. This is my opinion, and this is where I'm coming from. As for you, you say that women go through this struggle every single day, that women can't do this, that women are discriminated against. Women are not singled out like black people, first of all. When you walk down the street, you are not singled out. You, a woman, no woman, I am a woman, but first I'm a black woman, okay? No woman, period, will ever feel the pain, will ever feel the struggle that a black woman goes through. For years and years and years, we have been oppressed. We are still being oppressed in every realm of life, socially, politically, and economically. My history goes back to 400 BC. But what do I learn? I learned about slavery. Now we can learn about women's lib and all that, and I feel for women, I go through the same struggle that you go through, but you do not go through the struggle that I go through every day. As for you, having a heart isn't going to kick it. It's not going to get it. You know, you can have the biggest heart in the world, and I embrace you for having that heart. But you are not me. You do not go through what I see. And as for you, I have a problem with a man that I should be able to look up to as my role model, as a black role model. We have so few positive black role models. I am only 18 years old. I just graduated, and it hurts me to hear who should be my role model saying he doesn't know if there's a solution, saying, and then turning around contradicting himself, saying, believe in yourself. How does somebody believe in themselves when they have been stripped of their dignity, when their ancestors have, when they cannot climb the corporate ladder? I have a problem. What we need to do, like the gentleman down here said, is we need to be educated. There is hope for us if only we can learn where we came from. If you can teach me who I am, if you can teach us who we are, we will rise, because we will gain that inner confidence, we will gain our self-esteem, and then we can go from then.
I think we hit a key point when we're talking about education. Everybody looks to the schools, but I don't believe that our young people today are getting their education in the schools. They're getting their education from an irresponsible power structure, an irresponsible media. They're going to find their own avenues of education. They're going to pick and choose where they want to learn what they're learning. And I feel powerless and frustrated at what's happening more today than ever before since what's happened in LA, because the media has hooked this society on sensationalism and has used this sensational piece of history to further increase tensions. And I think somebody over here said something about the threat of losing power. And I think that's really true, and we can see it in the structure that our society is based on. They've got us hooked on sensationalism, and they're in that structure that has the power. When I hear people say white power, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, who's lived without it. It's there, it's threatened, and that's what structure we're based on. So getting back to education, we need to hit at that structure. We need to aim towards that structure. That's where our education is going to come from. Schools can be a part of it, but if you ask the PTA or the school board or the teachers to help us here, they're going to be powerless, just as us as individuals feel.
I am Euro-American, and I prefer that term to be politically correct and to fit in here a little bit. I feel that generally my opinions don't fit in, however. I have heard a lot of verbal accolades from most people, not from all, about the mosaic fallacy, which I think is a fallacy. I think it's something that is not working, will not work, and will prove itself in the future beyond a shadow of a doubt. I think people are really going to have some serious problems in the future because of forced integration. This lady here said, burn it down, tear it down. White people are scared, and the only way Euro-Americans are going to come off of anything is out of fear. I disagree. When I'm scared, I fight, okay, in self-defense. But when I'm scared, I fight, and I am not any different than most people. And I think when white people get scared all over the place, we're going to have some real problems. We don't need to be sitting here scaring each other. We need to communicate. We need to take the cotton out of our ears, put it in our mouth, and let someone else talk for a while.
I'd like to talk about from the standpoint of being a Vietnamese male living in America, 17 years old, from my viewpoint. As I said before, I'm 17 years old, and I've been living in this country for 16 years. And to a lot of my people, that being Vietnamese people, that is a great amount of time because a lot of us are newcomers here. Now, a lot of times when people look at us, the ingrained thing they think is Asian American. That is the term that a lot of my people get put on as the politically correct version. Now, when we walk down the street, a lot of people look at us and think foreigner. They think, you can tell by the way they look at you, you can tell by the way they talk slower just to make sure that you can speak English well, you can tell by the way you walk into a bookstore and they follow you around. They say foreigner, that tells you foreigner, and so American in our identity is crossed out. Now to survive, my people, especially the young people, have to be able to adapt to a different environment. And so there are things that are going to change within our culture. And that doesn't mean turning our back on our culture. It means doing what we have to do to survive. And then a lot of us, when we go home, our parents say to us, you're not Asian anymore. And so the Asian parts get scratched out. And so when you have Asian American and both are scratched out, what are you left with? You're left with nothing. Now, we can talk about race relations and we can talk about how we respect each other and all that, but if this identity problem occurs everywhere, if I can't reach common ground within myself, then I can't reach common ground with anybody else.
And that is a good